Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. I'm Counselor Anne. It is always amazing to take time and just share emerging issues in counseling. And today I would like just us to share about vicarious trauma and what is happening around us. Vicarious trauma is whereby either as a counselor or as a helper or a rescuer, service provider, you go through trauma because of assisting, supporting, or counseling trauma survivors. And maybe you could be asking the question, why vicarious trauma? Yeah, anybody who is dealing with trauma counseling or trauma survivors, you realize that by the time you are finishing handling the third client, as a counselor, as a helper, as a rescuer, whatever position you are taking in supporting this survivor, you are actually also experiencing some level of trauma. There is a very traumatic videos circulating right now on media where human beings are being slaughtered and organs are being harvested. Unfortunately, those are things that are happening around us, and there are so many cases of some of our friends, neighbors, family members that have disappeared only to be found later with some parts of the body missing, which means actually these videos were taken by people who are practicing whatever name you can call it. And when a parent, a sibling, a friend, a colleague, a workmate finally comes to terms that whoever the significant other has died through such torture, it is very traumatizing. And even for us who are professionals, for us who are trauma counselors, we experience a lot of trauma just as you listen to this client experienced, explain their experience and share their experience, share their pain, and work with them. And by the time you're having the fourth or the fifth session, you also need supervision, you also need counseling. So that aspect of you as the caregiver, as the counselor, as the trauma specialist, of you experiencing trauma because of somebody else's trauma, is what we call vicarious trauma. We have also seen on the a video circulating concerning a female journalist who has gone on the streets because of the trauma she experienced while just videotaking and reporting the news. And that points out to us that trauma is real. It is real. And if you don't seek for help, if you don't seek help, it might take you further. The first time I handled trauma survivors, extreme trauma. Okay, we also have mild trauma, traumatic experiences, but there are these extreme cases where the traumatic experience is on the extreme. And I think the Garissa bomb attack, Garissa University bomb attack survivors, for me were like the first clients of extreme trauma that I had to support and counsel. And from that time, I have been able to handle clients sometimes who have gone through even post-traumatic stress disorder. They have even visual impairment, they have partial paralysis, they have mental disturbance and other extreme cases. And it is a high time that as counselors, we took peer supervision seriously, just for your sake, even for you who is a caregiver. Take time and go for supervision. If you are not in a position, if you are giving pro bono services, maybe you have been supporting people in your religious circles, in your faith circles, and you are not financially in a situation where you can go for therapy or counseling from a senior counselor yourself, then you can make good use of peer supervision. You can go to a colleague and be able to vent out and be supported. And this has to be somebody who has either a similar experience or is better in experience in order to support you. Yeah, as the saying goes, that, a blind man cannot lead a blind man, or else the two of you will go into a ditch. You cannot go for support or supervision to a fellow counselor who has less experience or is less exposed as to what you are dealing with. Otherwise, they may not be in a position to support you. There's also a growing concern in our environment about homicides, suicides. It just disheartens. It is sad to see a neighbor, like around 500 meters from my compound, a student committed suicide. A student who was schooling like 50 meters from a school that is 50 meters from my gate. And hardly 2 weeks later, a young lady commits suicide because a suitor has turned down the proposal of coming to pay dowry and marrying her. When these things are happening around us, it is causing a lot of disturbance. About 16 months ago, also not far from where I am, an assistant chief committed suicide because his children are not behaving well. They're truant and disobedient to him, and he felt as a role model in the society he has failed. And so this takes us, even as counselors and as helpers. Maybe you are there, you're not a professional counselor, you are a pastoral counselor, you are whichever aspect of counseling skills that your orientation informs you. And the bottom line is that we need to be our sister or brother's keeper. We need to identify the telltale signs in our family members, in our workmates, in our colleagues, in our neighbors, in our chama members, and be able to be proactive, to take a step and be warm and be friendly to this person when everybody is throwing arrows to them and telling them, nowadays you behave funny, you are so emotional, you are so what, that judgmental. You as the counselor or the helper or the caregiver, keeping in mind that not all of us are professional counselors, but a good number of us have done some aspects of counseling and how to use counseling skills. And therefore, we can have impact in our society. And just knowing the telltale signs, like maybe you could be asking, what are these telltale signs? Like when there is sudden change of behavior in a person, can you move close and just be warm to that person? Give them a courtesy call, and not an official conversation, but can you get to know what is it that is bothering them? And having in mind that you have the basic counseling skills and how to use them, then you know how to probe or to use open-ended questions and avoid interrogative questions or avoid curiosity leading questions, but creating an environment that is warm, that will attract this person and make them like want to open to you, assuring them of confidentiality. And indeed, you must be a person also who if you are a clergy or a sheikh or whatever a leadership position, you are not this kind of person that goes telling people's stories or people's issues to others, or using them as an example in your sermon. Otherwise, they will not open to you, because they know the next thing then they come to church or to the religious gathering, you are going to point them out without even mentioning names. People will know that you're actually referring to them. So by reaching out to these people, creating an environment that is warm, we are going to save lives. And keep in mind that when you lose one life, you have lost actually very many people. For example, like this assistant chief who committed suicide, he had family, he had a spouse, he had children who were depending on him. And a number of people were receiving, directly and indirectly help and services from him. And so, the status of the wife changes. She becomes a widow. These children become orphans. Their education and sustenance is already challenged. You never know how many other, how many lives are affected just by the death of one person. Hello, my colleagues, my friends, caregivers, helpers, professional counselors, whatever cadre you are, that you are there, you have a heart to support and make lives better. Let us create an environment of being warm and just welcoming, so that we can make a difference. Don't look at your situation and say, I'm just one person, what difference can I make? That talk to that neighbor, or to that teenage girl, or to that adolescent boy of your neighbor, will actually make him change his mind from committing suicide, will make him change his mind from joining the vigilante group. It will make him think twice about being introduced to alcohol or to a wrong cult. Hello, do not imagine that anything you do is insignificant. That talk, talk therapy or counseling is a helping profession where we use talk, and we are able to save lives, to change behavior, to model behavior, and behavior that is a change of behavior that is sustainable. So thank you. Kindly take care of yourself. Professional counselors, go for supervision. Hello, and do not let the trauma of the client traumatize you until you cannot be the helper that you're supposed to be. It was nice having you. Until next time, this is Counselor Anne, and bye-bye.